no sense.
Hello and welcome to episode 429 of Geektown Radio. I'm your host Dave, and this week I have with me To Infinity and Beyond! Matt, how are you doing?
I'm very good, David. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. We did actually record a show a couple of weeks ago, which is the one that didn't work. So I thought I'd get you back on this week. So
that's nice of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Mainly finishing up quite a few shows. There was actually, apart from these three shows I've got written here, there's a lot of short shows I found myself very far behind on. Archer being one, both of the like Justin Roiland things, so Solar Opposites and Rick and Morty. Found myself a bit behind on those, so I'm trying to just catch up with those as well. And they're all kind of like 20-minute shows, but it's just trying to get through those. Mm-hmm. Another one which is also like quite short as well, Upload Season 3, which I caught up with. I knew that at some point there's going to be a fourth and final season, so I thought I'd better get onto that before fall behind on that as well. Still very, very good. I don't know how I would compare it with like previous seasons or whatever, but still just really, really good stuff. Interesting, obviously I won't go into spoilers, but a very interesting ending. It would have been really bad if we didn't get a fourth season after that, but yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how that goes into actual final season. And it does feel, you know, when you kind of finish a season of TV and you think, right, this has probably got one more in it, it feels like it's at about that point. As much as we really love it and as much as it's really great and the cast is really good, you've got Robbie Amell in there who's really great, it feels poised for like a final season. So yeah, I really, really like that show. I agree. I think it's one of those things that the storyline can only stretch so far. So I think, that they are at a point where they're needing to sort of wrap it. But it's been great. I mean, it's a really wonderful, interesting concept, the idea of you get uploaded into this sort of virtual afterlife as a computer program, and now you've got kind of him jumping backwards and forwards between being, alive in a synthetic body and the afterlife version and all that sort of stuff. It's been great how they've strung all that together, and the conspiracy thing I think has been brilliant. So I'm really interested to see how they wrap the show. And given where they end season 3, I think they've done a great job with it. And I can't remember whether it was renewed before season 3 came out or not, but I think they'd envisaged it as coming to an end with its fourth season either way. So I'm glad that they've got that coming, but it's been great so far. So yeah, very, very enjoyable. That's on Prime if you want to go and check Upload out. It's very funny. Yeah, final season. I'm going to guess that's next year probably, because we haven't really heard much about Upload this year. So looking forward to that. I thought I'd put this one in the middle because I have the lowest opinion of this of the three shows I'm going to talk about. Batman the Caped Crusader, which has come out. I got through, I think I finished episode 6 yesterday. I can't remember if it's 6 or 7, but I think it was number 6. I don't think I like it that much. Don't think it's a bad show. Like we said remember the conversation we're having about Game of Thrones House of Dragon. There's a difference between an outright bad season of TV and one that you just don't like as much as what you should or whatever. So I wouldn't say it's a bad season of TV because I've definitely seen things that much worse. The way I would pinpoint my thoughts on it is, okay, it's got some interesting character differences. Nothing of really which kind of because I agree with what you said last week. Actually, it was very interesting what you kind of pointed out that, okay, the character changes are fine. There's nothing wrong with them being there, but they don't do anything really kind of unique with them. They don't sort of like...
They need a purpose.
It just sort of is there, which again, I have no problem with. It doesn't get in the way of the show being worse or better or anything else like that. But if you combine that with, obviously we've had many Batman stories and films and games and things like that, and some of them have their own identities. And like, if you take, as much as I had an issue with the pacing of it, if you look at, let's say, the Batman, the most recent example, its identity and its kind of purpose with that was, okay, we're going to be more detective driven, which the Batman films like haven't quite done before, so it focused on that. It didn't do that, I think, to the best of its ability, but it had its own kind of thing. I feel like just with this Batman show, I've kind of been there and seen it a little bit before. I also don't think, and this isn't on the voice actor, and it's not fair to compare him to Kevin Conroy, obviously, because that's just not fair. But I don't know that I really actually like this version of Batman himself. I don't find him particularly He's very sort of plainly written at points, I think.
Yeah.
There's just nothing sort of, again, if you look through all the, mainly the live action Batman, they all have a little bit of their own different qualities and sort of differences. He's just kind of there. I don't know. We got the Harley Quinn, like slight changes. See, with the Harley Quinn thing, I liked the idea of what she was doing in the episode, because that's something I don't think I've come across that often before. But it was funny actually, because the scene where she, like, obviously you know that it's her that she's doing this thing, because multiple characters by that point have found it out and Batman's investigating. To be honest, when she popped up in costume in that scene, I didn't know it was her straight away. I was like, oh, who's it? And then I think Batman says, oh, Harleen or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually Harley Quinn. So that was a bit strange. It wasn't to do with her character or the way she was behaving. It was kind of the outfit. Like when I took a sort of second look at it and he said, oh, Harleen, you've done this, that, whatever. And they had a confrontation. I was like, oh, this is Harley Quinn. But again, I thought the idea there was quite good with the whole rich people thing and stuff. Also, I don't know if I've not seen anybody else mention this. I think it's Harvey Dent. The animation and character design with Harvey Dent and with Bruce looks almost the same. Like, in fact, there's a scene I think there's a boat in episode 2. Yeah. And they're standing sort of shoulder to shoulder and they look like the same character. So there's just things that aren't really quite working here. But the weird thing is, if you look at sort of the people behind it, you're like, okay, surely there shouldn't be anything really wrong with this. Because you've got, I think I caught her name in the credits, Haley Gross. I think she worked on like Last of Us 2 and stuff. And you've got Bruce Timm, then you've got like JJ Abrams, you've got Matt Reeves. So you've got a lot of really good people on this, but it's just not clicking together for some reason.
Yeah, I get that Bruce Timm didn't want to go back and just do more of Batman the Animated Series, which is the show that he's known for. I kind of get that he was reluctant to do that because, you know, he's done it already and he doesn't want to go back and tread over that. I do sort of understand his point of view for that, but I don't think this has worked. I think it's an interesting swing, but I don't think it's quite worked. What would have been better is if DC had gone to him and said, okay, create an animated series based on the Gotham by Gaslight comic books, which is a sort of steampunky version of Gotham. And I think had they given him that as a framework to work within, it's an established world in the comic books and it would have given something a bit better to hang his hat on. And it also gives them better excuse for all the character changes that they make as well. I kind of feel like maybe, you know, that would have worked as a better thing than trying to do this, which is a sort of a little bit the original animated series, but not. And they've made these weird changes and it just doesn't work, unfortunately, for me. You know, we know that DC has a multiverse and this is clearly, you know, something which is in that multiverse somewhere, but I'm not feeling it, unfortunately. I don't have a huge issue with the voice acting. I think animations are really good, other than, like you say, you know, there are some similarities with some of the characters, but it just isn't landing for me. And I think part of the problem was people were expecting it to be more the animated series, and it isn't. And the changes that they've made seem unnecessary just to make it slightly different from the original animated series. So I think had there been a structure and a purpose to it, and had you made it a very specific world, it would have worked better. Like I say, if you, for example, taken Gotham by Gaslight and turned that into an animated series, I think that would have worked better. But, you know, it's a shame, really.
I wonder as well, because X-Men 97 just came out, which kind of comparable, I suppose. You've got like two sort of 90s cartoon-ish returning things, and I've thought X-Men 97 was absolutely incredible. I'd seen like a handful of the original series, but I absolutely loved almost everything in 97. And I remember when we kind of heard about this, and there was also rumors about like the Spider-Man 90s cartoon returning, and there was a lot of conversations of, oh, I wonder if a lot of the animated series can be brought back in the same way. See where you have got the difference there, because this isn't trying to... Yeah,
that's the problem. It's specifically trying not to be Batman the Animated Series, which was a fantastic cartoon.
A sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, and whereas 97 is a direct sequel or continuation of that original show. And I think had had they made this a direct continuation of the original show, it would have landed a lot better. But again, I sort of understand Bruce Timm not necessarily wanting to do that, but maybe they should have done that and continued directly with somebody else, or they should have given him a very specific framework to work in rather than...
I've still got episodes to watch. I'm sitting there saying all this. I've still got episodes to watch as well. So have you finished it?
No, I haven't finished it yet. I'm a few episodes in, but...
Which one did you get up to, roughly?
Second or third, I think. But I haven't watched that much of it at the moment. And, I love Batman stuff. And the fact that I haven't just binged my way through it is a sign, I think, So
ever since my childhood, it's been Spider-Man was my Marvel thing and Batman was my DC thing. So, and obviously learned about the other characters later. Anyway, let's move on to Young Sheldon's final season, which has come up. We are, I think there's been more than 3 episodes, but I've watched about episodes 1 through 3 so far. Very, very good. Obviously, they're kicking off the final season. They got 12 episodes. I would kind of explain the situation the characters are in, but that would be slightly sort of spoilery. Basically, Sheldon's sort of gone somewhere else. There was an incident that's happened. There was a few bits of family rearranging, let's call it. Got Missy and George who continue to grow up as well. Obviously, George and Mandy have had Cece at this point, so that's kind of all kicked off as well. Some of those things are known because obviously you got the George and Mandy spin-off coming up as well. I'm going to guess nobody's picked that up over here yet. I'm just going to...
No, not at the moment.
Has yet. So that airs this fall, as they say in America. But no, been very good. I've really enjoyed kind of the character dynamic. So you can tell the sort of hurtling toward those last bits of not just character development, but also kind of the end bits of the story. Very much enjoyed that so far. Again, the cast for that show is just really perfect. For those that do want to catch up, it's not all on Channel 4. A bunch of it's on Netflix. So that's been very good. How about you? What have you been up to?
Interesting one that I started watching really as a sort of, something while I'm eating or, doing other things. But I really rather got into it. There's a documentary series on Sky History called How Disney Built America. And as you probably guessed from the title, it basically explores the history of the Walt Disney Company and the Disney brand. It does it with a couple of actors doing sort of reenactments of Walt and his brother Roy as they sort of found the company. It's one of those things where those sort of little vignettes are part of the documentary. So it's not like a drama. They're just using that to illustrate points as you go through the documentary series. So there's a lot of sort of talking heads and footage of the parks being built and the animation and all that sort of stuff. It is just fascinating the amount of things that Walt actually pioneered, from stuff that we think about like, introducing sound to cartoons, introducing color to cartoons, the first feature-length animated movie. But even there's other stuff like the way that they ended up handling the merchandising and how that sort of created how merchandising is handled today. And stuff like the popularization of monorails and building techniques that they came up with for building the parks. And there's just this whole bunch of really interesting stuff. How he popularized cereal was a really odd one to children. How the reason that we have these colorful cartoon characters on cereal boxes is mainly down to Disney. There's so much of that stuff. I mean, it is obviously a sort of fairly positive look at Disney, so it doesn't take like a microscope to any of the kind of negative Disney stuff. So if you're looking for like a rounded history of it, then no, it's not so much that. It is more a positive look at the things that Disney have done. But it is fascinating, the creation of the characters and where the whole thing started. If you're a fan of Disney, it is worth going to check out. I found it really, really interesting. It's called How Disney Built America. It's on History Channel in the US. It's on Sky History in the UK. If you're a fan of Disney, worth going to look at that. It's really fascinating.
I wonder what you'd think of Disney today, because it's very, very different than what it used to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's really intriguing. And
we got the Marvel and the Star Wars.
Those sort of things. I do wonder how Disney would have reacted to that. And it would have been interesting to see what he might have come up with moving forward. And, the whole development of Disney World. Walt Disney World was never supposed to be just a theme park. It was supposed to be an actual city where people lived. And Walt died before that sort of came to fruition. So they ended up turning it into something else. But that's a sort of quite an interesting thing as well.
What year did he pass away? I'm not aware.
64, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
So he sort of started developing Walt Disney World and he passed away before it was built. Roy passed away about 6 months after Walt Disney World was completed because he was determined to carry on building it, partly because they'd bought all this swampland in Florida and they needed to do something with it. And also he wanted to complete Walt's vision as best he could. I just found all that really kind of interesting. So, yeah, if you're a fan of Disney, it's sort of all about the Disney history, but it's on Sky History in the UK called How Disney Built America. Umbrella Academy returned for its fourth and final season on Netflix. It's only 6 episodes, so it's a fairly short run. They're about an hour each, but wraps up pretty nicely. Wraps up in a very sort of Umbrella Academy way without spoiling anything. Kind of sad and interesting how they managed to bring that to a conclusion. I thought they did a reasonable job with it. I mean, they clearly, I think, would have liked a longer season because there are things that he chopped out because they didn't have 10 episodes. They only had 6 to wrap it up. But I still think it wraps the story reasonably well. You get the sort of family back together. It's an end of the world thing again. But there is a reason for the end of the world again this time around. It pulls things together really well. Casting's great. Tom Hopper, bless him, accent still all over the place even after 4 seasons. Slips in and out of English and American so much. But I love that guy. He's wonderful. It's just great. 5 is brilliant throughout this. He's quite a sort of central character. Been really, really fun for 4 seasons, that show, and wraps in a reasonable way as well. So have you been watching any of Umbrella Academy? I can't remember whether...
No, I've only got this 4th season left. So
okay.
I remember season 3 not being quite as good. Season 2 was quite good. Season 1 was good. I remember during and obviously after finishing season 3 feeling again that sort of one more season kind of thing. So knowing there's only 6 episodes left to kind of wrap it up sounds good. So
yeah, it feels like a reasonable run actually, those 6 episodes. I think had they tried to stretch it out over 10, I think it would have felt like there was a lot more filler in there. And I think they managed to cover the story very well in 6 episodes. It's a solid job, wraps well, definitely worth checking that out. The other thing which came to an end, this was a cancellation, of course, though, was Quantum Leap Season 2. Enjoyed the 2nd season immensely. They did some really interesting things with it in that they introduce a sort of time traveler's wife element to it, in that there is somebody that Ben keeps meeting as he's jumping through the leaps. I find that a sort of interesting thing to have put in for this. And what's been great about that series is how they've taken the original concept, not trampled over the original idea by using it as history, and moved it forward and in different directions by introducing what's going on back at Quantum Leap headquarters, which is an element which wasn't in the original show. So it's taken the basic concept and morphed it into something else and made a really, really nice, original, different show with still keeping the sort of essence and the element of the original series. It's such a shame that NBC decided to drop it after 2 seasons. I don't want to say it ends on a cliffhanger, but it doesn't completely wrap at the end because it was a cancellation, and obviously they needed to leave it somewhere for a 3rd season if they were going to get picked up. But it does have some bits of conclusion to it, I guess. It's just a shame that there isn't any more of it because they did a really, really good job with that 2nd season. Very, very, very enjoyable. Certainly, I would say if you're a fan of the original Quantum Leap, I would go and check this out because it is a nice continuation of that story. And it is a continuation as well as being a sequel. You know, there are callbacks and that sort of stuff to the original show and to Sam and all that sort of stuff. I just think it's a shame that they're not going to get to wrap it properly. But yeah, very, very enjoyable, but that's on Paramount Plus if you want to go and check that one out. And one other thing I wanted to mention, I've been diving back into Cities Skylines 2 because there is this game-changing mod that's been released called Road Builder. It pretty much does what it says on the tin. It allows you to actually build custom roads, which is something that has been sorely missing from the base game. They've added some updates quite recently of there's a new economy system which has made the game a lot more challenging. Before it was very, very, very easy to make money, and they've messed around with the economy to rebalance it. So that is slightly more challenging towards the level that it was in Cities Skylines 1. So that's been good. But the Road Builder mod has just opened up this whole new world. It basically allows you to custom build roads with as many or as few lanes as you want. You can add in train tracks into the roads. You can add in tram tracks, like separate from the road itself, because trams usually run over the same road that the cars do. So it gives you a lot more flexibility with what you can do with the road system. It's immense amounts of fun. The modding stuff is really starting to pick up in that game. I wouldn't say it's necessarily exactly where it needs to be yet, but it's certainly much closer to getting there. And if you're a fan of the city builders, Cities Skylines 2 is at a point where I think you can actually recommend people go out and buy it. You're going to want to play it with mods. Ideally, you want it on PC because a lot of these mods aren't available on the console versions. So definitely worth going to pick up if you've got a PC. But the Road Builder mod is an absolutely must-have, I think, at this point. It's one of those things that you kind of hope that they're going to introduce into the base game at some point. It's just a really well-written mod and additional bit of tech. So well worth going to check that out and picking that up. That's all the stuff we've been doing this week. Let's move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with the renewals, cancellations and pickups. And in terms of renewals and cancellations, you can tell we're in the middle of summer because there's been very, very, very little in terms of those. There's one which they did announce last week, although it's a slightly odd one because it's House of the Dragon, which the showrunner has said will end with its fourth season, although it's not actually been renewed for a fourth season at this point. But he's basically said that the plan is to run for 4 seasons. So we've obviously just had season 2. Season 3 will be out in a couple of years, and then season 4 will be out after that. It will be renewed for a full season unless something catastrophic goes wrong with HBO. It will be renewed for a full season, so it's going to come back. But the main reason being that it's based on a book. It's a book rather than a series of books. There is only so much story that they can tell across that, and better to end it at a point where you think you've told the story than trying to stretch it out for more seasons than you have story for. So, I'm absolutely fine with them doing that. I think it was always going to be a shorter run. I mean, he's basically said they've got 4 seasons worth of story, and that's what they're planning to run for. I'm okay with that. Obviously, we do the House of the Dragon podcast over on your site. We talked a little bit about this over there.
Yeah, 4 seasons feels right. Didn't quite think this was going to be, an 8-season run like Game of Thrones. In terms of renewing it, obviously there's plenty of time to do that because they haven't even made the 3rd one yet, and that's in 2 years' time. So, and we'll have other Game of Thrones, House of Dragon shows. Again, like I said, I think they need to come up with a nickname for this. Now that they're building it out as more of a franchise, come up with a nickname for it. So
yes,
but yeah, we'll have other shows in that world anyway. So it's not like the franchise is going to end when this show does.
No.
So yeah, feels right.
I mean, we know we've got more shows running. We know there are things in development. We also know that the Jon Snow series that was talked about isn't in development anymore. They couldn't find a way of getting it to work. That one has gone, which is a shame because that was going to be a sort of basically a continuation of the main Game of Thrones. But
see, if that had have been like a season 9, but it was a Jon Snow show, I wonder how much of the other characters we would have seen.
Yeah, I mean, it would have depended.
There were plenty still around, depending on where he went and all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
it's fine with where they left that anyway. So
yeah, there's obviously the Hedge Knight series or Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, as it's called. But there's other things coming as well. So, I mean, that franchise is going to keep going for a while. In terms of renewals, there was only really one, which was Vanderpump Villa Season 2. That has been renewed on Hulu and Disney+.
I wasn't aware there was a Season 1.
Neither was I, but that's the only sort of renewal I could find. In terms of pickups and other news, though, few advanced air dates for you. One thing that has popped up with the Vampire Diaries Legacies, which is never aired in the UK, it looks like all 4 seasons are coming to Prime on the 20th of August. It's popped up on their coming soon list. So finally, if you're a Vampire Diaries fan and you watched both of the other shows, you'll now be able to watch Legacies. It looks like all 4 seasons are coming to Prime on the 20th of August. Keep an eye out for that over there. Shrinking, the Apple show, that has got season 2 premiere date of the 16th of October. That is Harrison Ford and Jason Segel from How I Met Your Mother. Second season of that, Shrinking, is Wednesday, the 16th of October. And The Diplomat, which was that brilliant Netflix show, very darkly funny political thriller, that returns for a second season. That's on the 31st of October. That's on Netflix worldwide. Season 1 of that was hilarious and just fantastic. Very much has a sort of Succession vibe to it in terms of sort of the snarkiness of the humor, but really enjoyed the first season of that, so very much looking forward to the second season of that landing as well. But 31st of October for that on Netflix. Over on Disney Plus, they have confirmed that they've picked up 2 of the new ABC shows, which, I mean, makes sense because they're both made by Disney subsidiaries. They have officially confirmed that they are both coming to Disney Plus in the UK. The first one is called High Potential, and it's a crime procedural that stars Caitlin Olsen from It's Always Sunny as Morgan, a single mother with an exceptional mind whose unconventional knack for solving crimes leads her to an unusual and unstoppable partnership with a by-the-book seasoned detective played by Daniel Sunjata from Rescue Me and Manifest and Graceland, who's a really fun actor. You've also got Javanka Leslie from Batwoman in there as well. It's created by Drew Goddard, who has worked on, Daredevil, he was responsible for Buffy and Angel, he worked on Lost, The Martian, he wrote as well. It's based on a French series called HPI. Rod Harton, who worked on things like Rosewood, Psych, and The Resident, is the showrunner on it. It sounds very sort of network TV procedural, but I think could be quite fun, just given the cast that are involved with it. Caitlin's great. Daniel, I think, is great as the 2 leads. So if you like those sort of dramedy procedural things, I think that's probably going to be quite a fun one. And it's called High Potential. It's coming. Both of these are coming in autumn, they've said.
Yeah, some good names attached here. So
yeah. The other one is Dr. Odyssey, which we don't know a huge amount about, but is described as a high-octane medical procedural. It's from Ryan Murphy, who, of course, did 911, American Horror Story, Glee, just a million other shows. Stars Joshua Jackson from Fringe, Dawson's Creek, and all those other things as Max, a new onboard doctor for a luxury cruise ship where the staff works hard and plays harder. It's all hands on deck as Max and his small but mighty medical team navigate the unique medical crisis and each other miles from shore. Joshua Jackson's the lead. It's also got Don Johnson in it from Miami Vice and Nass Bridges and all that sort of stuff. Philippa Sue, who probably best known for being in Hamilton, the musical, but she was also in Shining Girl. She was in Dope Sick, and Sean Teal, who is in The Gifted. It's from Ryan Murphy, written and exec produced by him. Jackson Johnson also have some involved in that, and John Robin Baltz, who worked on Frew, Betty and Joan, and Joe Balkin, who worked on American Horror Story. So it's basically Ryan and his team involved in it. It's Ryan Murphy. It's a procedural. We've had great success with 911. It's one of the more interesting procedurals out there. It's called Dr. Odyssey. This is going to be one worth watching, I think, definitely, just because it's Ryan.
Yeah, hopefully. We shall see.
Yeah. But I like Joshua Jackson a lot. I mean, he was great in Fringe, and Don Johnson's good, so that's worth checking out. We also got a little bit of news about one of the cast from New Amsterdam, Tyler Labine, who's probably best known for playing Iggy on New Amsterdam, is going from New Amsterdam to a new planet. He's going to be on Apple TV's For All Mankind when it returns for its 5th season. He's playing Fred, a Mars peacekeeper. Don't know any more about him than that, but he will be a recurring character on the 5th season. They also announced previously that Morella Innos, who previously was partnered with Joel Kinnaman, who of course has been the lead on For All Mankind for 4 seasons so far, worked with him on The Killing and sort of on Hannah, although I don't know whether they actually crossed paths on Hannah, but they were both in that show. She's playing Celia Boyd, who is another member of the peacekeeping security force on Mars. That all sounds good to me. I think Tyler's great. I think Morella's fantastic. This is probably the final outing for Joel. I mean, it kind of has to be, because he was getting on a bit even in season 4, and they've had another time jump since then. So I think he's going to be in this season, because it'd be weird to kill him off camera. But at this point, they can't really keep him around much longer. I don't think it's got to be his final season. We'll see.
How many more seasons has the show got?
I don't know yet. I mean, it keeps getting renewed. So I suspect it's probably Joel's last. Not anything to do with the actor or him being bad or wanting to leave. It's just the character himself is probably in his 90s at this point, and you can see you kind of, because each season jumps forward about 10 years, so you're getting to a point where you can't really keep him around for much longer. I mean, unless they do something like, I don't know, end up having him uploaded as an AI or something. I don't know what they could do to keep him maybe involved somehow, but at this point, the actual character that he plays is quite old, so I don't see how much longer they can actually keep him on the show. Have you watched any of those?
No, I'm still really far behind. I keep trying like every Christmas or so to catch up. I've got a ton of it to catch up with. I watched the first 2 episodes. I did quite like it, but there's a lot of it and the episodes aren't short. So yeah.
No, that is true. Don't know exactly when that is landing, but For All Mankind is returning for a 5th season. Probably going to be a while off before that lands. So, moving on from that, it was, of course, D23 over the weekend, which is the big Disney fan convention. It's an interesting one this year because there wasn't that much in terms of new announcements, certainly for Marvel or for Star Wars. There was a few things for Disney, but leaning slightly more towards the animation, which is a sort of interesting one. There were some trailers dropped and stuff. So what we'll do is we'll just go through everything that was announced over D23 over the weekend, and discuss things as we go through. So we'll start off with the trailers that were actually released online. There was a trailer for Moana 2 that we knew he's coming. There was a clip sort of trailer for Mufasa, the Lion King, which is a prequel to the sort of CGI Lion King thing that they did. Has got a new song in it, penned by Lin-Manuel Miranda as well. That is coming. They showed some footage from there was a trailer floating around for Snow White, the live action, in quotes, version of that, which, I mean, is sort of a mixture of live action and animation, because I think the dwarfs themselves are actually all animated, but Snow White is a live actor and the other characters are live actors. There wasn't so much a trailer, but there was a little bit of the live action, again in quotes, of Lilo and Stitch, which shows Stitch, the first sort of look at the CGI version of Stitch. That's coming in summer 2025. You've got an actual full trailer for Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which is Star Wars does the Goonies. Looks like it's going to be quite a fun, interesting series. There's some very intriguing things that you see in that trailer, such as Star Wars Suburbia, which is something that we've not really seen before. It's like literally a sort of suburban street and stuff where these kids live, which, you know, we're used to seeing these kind of grotty towns that are all built up, not these pristine kind of suburban areas. So, I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, Jude Law has been referred to as a Jedi in some of the reports, but then Jude Law, when they actually asked him outright, said he was a Force user. He doesn't specifically say he's a Jedi. So, and he mentions in the trailer, I mean, are you a Jedi? They say to him, which seems to be implying that he is, but I do wonder if that's a misdirect. So, there's some interesting stuff going on there, but I'm actually quite excited for that. I think that one looks like it's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, just talk about a couple of the bits you mentioned here. I specifically didn't watch the Moana 2 trailer because I haven't watched the first film yet, so didn't want to jump into that yet. On the live action stuff, I mean, I could go on for a while about that, but I wouldn't say I've never been into Lion King, but it's kind of this just doesn't interest me at all, that prequel thing, and it's quite kind of annoying that if you look at the highest grossing animated films, the 2019 Lion King's at the top, which is ironic because the reason they made it is for a quote unquote live action remake, but it's all, apart from I think one shot at the start, all of it is made with animation, even though its purpose is a live action remake. And then you've got the Snow White thing. I think that looks okay. Again, I'm not really sort of like I don't have personal investment there. I agree with what I think Peter Dinklage has come out before and said, like, why didn't you just hire a bunch of small people?
Yes.
So yeah, because there's plenty of them that work.
Yeah.
I can think of at least a couple off the top of my head that I know. So
that I think was a mistake.
It also makes them look a bit odd as well.
Yeah, I think it's a weird choice not to have hired little people to do the dwarf characters in Snow White. I don't know why they went down that route. It would have made more sense to hire small people to do that, because if you're going to go down the route of making a live action thing, make it live action, particularly as they're such integral parts of the story. So I don't know why they went down the CG route.
Because Disney, I guess, but there's that with that. Lilo and Stitch, he doesn't look as bad as I thought it was. He could have looked a lot worse. I don't know if there's ever like an original draft, because like if you remember when we first saw like Sonic, for example, and it was like, oh god, you have to change this, and like they actually credit to them, it worked out brilliantly, and they went and changed it. But for a character that's so kind of the way he is, they did a pretty good job with that. So no idea what the rest of the film will look like, but that's pretty decent. Because in terms of my interest in actual Disney stuff, because obviously I'm much more of a Pixar person, and it's funny when some people say like, they're basically the same thing. No, they're very, very different properties. Like all the Disney and Pixar stuff, they go for like different things tonally and story wise and all that kind of thing. So I'd say maybe two things, maybe like Hercules and Lilo and Stitch, maybe a few other things. There's very few Disney, like original Disney properties that I sort of attach my interest to. I did like the Little Mermaid one. I thought that was good. I have seen the Lion King one. That was okay, but confusing at points because of how some of the lions looked. But they're trying their thing. At least with these couple of ones they're trying to do here, they look a little bit better than some of the ones we've had before. I still think, however, you literally got 100-year history, because Disney, I think last year had their 100th anniversary. The lazy feeling towards, now you're just going, okay, let's just go back to the start and just live action remake everything feels, I'm not saying the work to do this is lazy, but the approach is very lazy. So, see, this is where, when you talk about, okay, critical reception and box office gross are two very different things. If too many groups of people keep continuing to go to hate watch things and it gets those things box office money, like The Lion King, which seemingly was also hate watch because nobody seems to actually like that film, but it ended up being the highest grossing animated film of all time, which is like 1.6 billion or something. That doesn't happen by accident. So what we need to learn to do more is to actually watch the things that we want at the box office. Because if we're turning around as the audience going, hey, why do you keep making these live action stuff? They say, well, because you keep going and watching them. So
exactly.
What do you want us to do?
But
the box office is telling us to go and keep making these things, but you're telling us you don't want them, but you still go and watch them. So anyway, the Star Wars thing, I think I don't think I came across that on YouTube. I think because there was so much going on, I was scrolling through Twitter and watching a live stream and stuff. I think I saw a muted version of that trailer, but it did look quite good. I like the idea and the approach, as you mentioned. So
I think it's something quite different. It's trying. It's an interesting one because, whereas Stranger Things lent into sort of 80s nostalgia, this is almost doing the same sort of thing, but leaning into the vibe rather than the actual 80s. It's that sort of vibe of that kind of Goonies sort of movie, led by kids mainly, and then Jude Law is in there as the sort of supervising adult. I really think this could be quite an interesting one. So looking forward to. Yeah, it's a show. It's out later this year. I'm looking forward to that landing. I think that could be interesting.
I know it's very difficult, but hopefully the Star Wars fandom doesn't completely explode when it comes up.
No. Yeah. There was also a new trailer for Agatha All Along, which we know we've got coming soon as well. There was a little bit for the second season of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Really enjoyed the first season of that. I thought it was really good. Second season is based on Sea of Monsters, which is, of course, the second book. It's only a week into production, but they still managed to put out like a very, there is a full-length trailer, but a lot of it's footage from season one with a voiceover. And then right at the very end of that that there is a tiny little clip of some new footage. But the fact that they've only been in production a week and they've managed to pull that together, I think is fairly impressive. But yeah, that was good. First season of that was really good. I think it's a nice adaptation of it. They're on the right track with that, so I'm interested to see what they do with the second season. And then there is a full trailer up for Win or Lose as well, which is Pixar's first ever original series as opposed to film, coming out 6th of December.
I don't know how I missed that.
It revolves around a co-ed softball team in middle school named the Pickles in a week leading up to their big championship game. Each episode is shown from the perspective of the members of the team, showing the same event but from a different point of view. But each has its own sort of unique visual style as the sort of memories of the different people involved. I think it's a really interesting idea, both visually and I think it'll be quite fun. It's coming out 6th of December, so it's called Win or Lose, Beyond Disney+. We knew that was coming because we'd seen little bits and pieces of it before, but we've got a date for that now, and I think that's going to be an interesting one, that. In terms of footage that was shown at D23 but isn't officially released online, although
is there a reason that they do that? Is it like an NDA or something?
I think it's just to give the people at D23 or at the cons something exclusive.
Okay.
But of course the footage gets leaked online.
Yeah, so, people film it and stuff.
Yeah, because people film it, put it up. And I mean, you've got to be fairly quick usually because they're quite good at like getting the banhammer out and getting stuff taken down. But there was a trailer that went up for Daredevil Born Again. They had Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Deborah Ann Woll, Alden Hansen, and John Berthnall all up on stage doing introduction for this. It looks really good from the bits and pieces that were up there. Not that I've seen the trailer, of course, because, there are floating around online if you want to go and look for them. If you're worried that they're going to be toning it down, don't be, from what they showed in that footage. I mean, there may be a bit less blood, but it was certainly, there was a lot of punching going on in sections of that. It's
so interesting to me that when conversations of these shows like Punisher, Daredevil got brought up, and then obviously at some point Disney bought Fox, which has like Alien and Predator, which are very violent series and stuff. It's very interesting to me that when Disney acquired more of these adult type things, there was a lot of worries of, it's going to be Disney-fied and family-friendly and that sort of thing. And it's like, no, that doesn't have to be. Just because Disney is looked at as a family-friendly company, that doesn't mean that every single thing they make has to be toned down. Just because they do have, the princess stories and all that, it doesn't need to work that way. So, and I think what I like about Daredevil and all this kind of stuff is coming back. Say what you will about the Echo show, I personally did like it, but I think that gave, at least from tonally, that gave us a little glimpse of like, hey, Daredevil's coming back. Here's an example of what we can do on Disney Plus. Don't worry about it, because there's, it kind of is shown in that show as well. But I was never on the side of like, they're going to make all of it PG-13 and tone it down, and because they don't have to do that. So It's not that all these series are like completely driven by violence, but it is a part of the shows. So
I mean, when you're dealing with street level heroes like this, you do need to be able to show maybe a little bit more than you would do on certain other things. But from the footage that they've shown, it looks like it's going to be really good. I know it's had production issues and they basically stopped it and rewrote it. But
yeah, Kevin Feige come in, didn't he? And it was like, now we're doing this again.
Yeah, this isn't working. We're doing it again. But you've got Deborah and you've got Eldon back in there as well, which apparently weren't in the original drafts. You've got John in there as Punisher as well, which I don't think was there in the original. So they've got the band back together. It looks like it's going to be really, really good, that.
I saw this little sort of like press photo shoot of all them standing in one photo, and it's like, this is what we want.
Yeah. The fact that they bought them all out seems to imply that they're not bit parts, that they are going to be in it rather more than just kind of, look, there's Foggy. It looks like they're going to be in there a bit more than that. So we'll see. That's looking quite good. March next year, that's due out. There was a trailer for the Mandalorian and Grogu film, which is what it's officially going to be called. That's landing in May 22nd, 2026. That is landing. They did release some footage from that. Difficult to tell how much of it was new footage and how much of it was stuff that was pulled from the TV show. But, I mean, it looks pretty much like an episode of The Mandalorian, just feature length. So, I'm fine with that. That's perfectly okay with me.
Yeah, all good.
Andor Season 2, we know is coming in 2025. I don't think we've got an exact date for that yet. The one announcement for that, they did show some footage, but the main announcement was the fact that Ben Mendelsohn will be reprising his role as Orson Kenrick from Rogue One, which makes perfect sense given that the idea with Andor was they are going to dovetail it directly into Rogue One in the same way Rogue One dovetails directly into A New Hope. So it will all be sort of stitched together. And so it makes sense that you're going to bring the villain from that across into this. Makes perfect sense that they'll do that. Very much looking forward to that. I really like the first season of Andor. They've sort of said that it shows Diego Luna's character going from the sort of rogue that he was in the first series to the hero that he is when we sort of get to the movie, essentially. So that looks good.
I think I need to try that show again. It's had so much endless praise of like being talked about like a HBO show sort of thing. Should I watch season 1 and 2 and then watch Rogue One?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
It's before
I don't
Rogue
know.
One, right?
Yeah, it's before Rogue One. This is the sort of lead up to Rogue One. I don't see why not. I mean, Rogue One's a fantastic film as well. So
But yeah, I'll have to try all that again, I think. So
yeah. They also showed the Fantastic Four First Steps footage that was shown at SDCC, although that was also then leaked online as well. And there was some footage from Ironheart, which they showed, which is the other TV show that's coming out alongside Daredevil next year as well.
It's interesting that that's next year. There might have been clickbaity rumor sort of stuff, but it had been cancelled because there's some discussion of Marvel trying to take a bit of a step back and like some things might be cut, but glad that isn't. I really liked her introduction in Black Panther. I thought that was quite good. So
plus they'd filmed it, so there was no way that was going to be cancelled.
Right, just hope it does well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Those are the sort of trailers and footage. As I say, the first lot, they're official trailers online. The second lot, there are not official trailers online, but you might be able to find something if they haven't been taken down already. In terms of film announcements, the two big ones were probably Incredibles 3 is in the works with Brad Bird returning behind the camera for that. I'm very happy about this because I love the Incredibles movies. They're brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to them doing a third one of those. I think it makes sense.
This to me was the biggest announcement of the entire whole thing. As I've talked about before, obviously love Toy Story very, very, very much, but I also really, really love the Incredibles as well. To me, they're kind of like, if you call it Trinity of Pixar, is Toy Story, Monsters Inc. and Incredibles. There's lots of other beloved things like WALL-E, Ratatouille, Up and all that stuff, but right. But these are kind of, those to me are like the big three. And obviously we've had the 2 seasons of Monsters at Work. Obviously we're getting another Toy Story and we're getting more Incredibles. So having new stuff from all three is really, really good to me. But when they got onto the Pixar stuff, I kind of was 50-50 on like whether that would, like my hopes as to whether that would actually be there. Bear in mind, by the way, it was 14 years between the first and the second one. So given that the second one was only in 2018, I think it was, I always just had this thought of, okay, they'll probably make an Incredibles 3 eventually. Obviously it did incredibly well at the box office, but it was more of a case of just, okay, how long should I anticipate to wait for that announcement, given there was such a big gap between the first and second one? When they went back to back with, I think it was Toy Story 5 stuff and then Incredibles 3, it just, happy tears were shed from me, certainly. But the one thing I'd really like, I don't think the film will be a failure if they didn't do it, but I think it's time to age the 3 kids up a bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Unless you're going to do a Simpsons where they never age up.
Possibly.
I don't know. Because Violet and Dash, I think, is supposed to be young teenagers or something. So if you make them a bit older and then make Jack, who is literally an actual baby, make him more like a child age. And we don't need to age up the Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible too much. But say it shocked me. A lot of people seem to think like, oh yeah, here it is. Of course it was coming. But I just didn't know if I expected it here or not. But wow, that was, quite something. I
was very happy that they're doing that. And with Brad Bird coming back as well, which is great news. So that's all good.
A lot of people said he was like, oh no, he can't come back. He's too busy. He's off at, is it Skydance, I think, doing another film. It won't be him. That seemed to shock people more than this announcement. But oh, well, great that he is.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of Toy Story 5, no real sort of trailer or stuff, but I mean, the confirmation that Woody, Buzz, Jessie are going to be the sort of main leads in it, which, I mean, of course they are. And the gang will be fighting to stop their new child from becoming an iPad kid, apparently, is the sort of basic setup for that. It's going to be written and directed by Andrew Stanton, which they announced.
I got a big round of applause when they said that, yeah. And also facing, I think it's like 50 rogue Buzz Lightyears who have like gone bad or something. That could be a very interesting idea. It's interesting. I remember after Toy Story 3 or so, when the sort of audience that grew up with this started to get to that age where, like, you know, phones have become more of a thing. It was probably in one of the many Toy Story discussions I've been in online or something, said like, hey, what about if one day they do this kind of idea? So I'm glad they finally actually kind of doing this. That's going to be very intriguing. I just don't know how they actually win that fight. And as the guy who was presenting said, like, hey, none of you are holding up toys, you're all holding up phones to record this. So it'd just be great for this to be back, personally. I think that Buzz and Woody reunion is going to be amazing. It was so confusing that I saw so many discussions of like, how on earth does Woody get back? It's like, well, the carnival's only like down the road. He didn't go to like a different state or something. Yeah. Because he's marked as like a lost toy, right? But how lost can a lost toy be if they kind of can move around? Mm-hmm. But when they, I guess spoilers for the end of Toy Story 4 kind of, but when they split off at the end near the carnival's not supposed to be that far from Bonnie's actual house. And they all know where it is. So it's like them meeting up is not the most unbelievable thing. No. Yeah, if you get Buzz and Woody's reunion, which would be brilliant, that would probably break me in the first 10 minutes. But I'll probably be broken before that. And then you got this rogue Buzz thing going on and then the tablet thing. There's also a lot of talk of, okay, are we going to see like an adult Andy in this film? Possibly. I haven't talked about that, but that could be quite good as well. But lots of possibilities. What do you think of this? More Toy Story is always good, particularly if you've got Andrew Stanton back managing it. I'm all up for this. You know, I think they've done a really good job. First 3 were great. 4 was fun. So why not? I'm perfectly happy for them to do more of this. Another sequel that they're coming, they are very leaning heavily into sequels at the moment. Frozen 3, they've announced coming November 2027. So your children can annoy you with more songs. That will be coming back. Who would have thought that franchises that make billions of dollars can continue to come back? Yes, what a shock. Speaking of which, Avatar 3 has got an official title. It's going to be called Avatar Fire and Ash, coming December 19th, 2025, for those of you that care about that franchise, which I really don't. Have you seen the first or the second one? I've seen the first one. The story is so generic in that first one. It really is. Visually very impressive. Story is so paint by numbers. It's unbelievable. I've not seen the second one. I didn't have a huge desire. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. I scroll past it sometimes on Disney Plus and see 3 hours, 10 minutes. And I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that right now. Yeah. So that's a long time. It's never made sense to me that if you look at all the top grossing films in multiple different lists, they're all from like big popular franchises that people talk about a lot and that people cosplay as and all that sort of stuff. And given that both these Avatar, both of them are made over 2 billion, haven't they? Because they're both in the top 5. Mm-hmm. And outside of, you know, when the December came and went and the new year came around for the second film, no one really talks about like the characters, the story, the plot, or anything for these films. Do people just see these films because, okay, they do look very, very, very good, but is it just people want to look at something good for 3 hours? I don't know. I mean, the first one I get. I understand with the first one because it was using the 3D technology in a I remember that in a really impressive way, and I really thought that, you know, the 3D stuff that they did with that was absolutely superb. The second one I was kind of just really didn't have a huge desire to go and see because the plot of the first movie, as I say, visually very impressive. The plot of the first movie is just so generic. So yeah, I wasn't hugely kind of wanting to go and see them, right? I can't remember. I know there was a plan for 5. I don't know whether they filmed all 5 yet. But Avatar 3, officially called Fire and Ash, that's coming December 19, 2025. Zootopia 2, there was a little announcement from that. The wonderful Ki Wan is going to be voicing a snake named Gary in that. I am so happy for Ki. He's just such an adorable human being, and his history and how he rescued by the most ridiculous movie of all time with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and how he's sort of had this resurgence. I love that man. If he wants to voice a snake for Zootopia, absolutely go for it. I'm so happy for him. So yes, that will be that. I did like the first film. I don't know whether I've ever actually seen the first film. It's one that I keep on meaning to watch and never actually quite get around to it. But yes, Freaky Friday 2, which has been in the works for a while, I think, is now being called Freakier Friday, which that is Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis back with another sort of body swap
thing. So that's apparently a thing. I wasn't even aware.
The first one was a long time ago.
Yeah, the first one was a very, very long time ago. So yes, but that's called Freakier Friday now, that one. And Tron Ares, which is the next version of the Tron movies, got Jeff Bridges back once again, set inside the world of a computer mainframe. It's got Evan Peters in it, Greta Lee, and Jared Leto as the titular Ares, a highly sophisticated AI sent to the real world for an undisclosed mission. One of the big announcements from this was that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's band Nine Inch Nails will be composing the soundtrack for it. So it's going to have a really hardcore soundtrack by the sounds of it for that. I mean, it sort of makes sense. I'm not sure about Atticus, but certainly Trent has been composing for films for a little while as a sort of, outside Nine Inch Nails stuff. So great. It's going to have a kick-ass soundtrack for it anyway. But October 10th, 2025, that is landing. Did I see the second Tron movie? I can't remember whether I did or not.
I've never paid attention to Tron, really.
No, I mean, I remember watching the first one because that's of my kind of generation, right. And it was really impressive at the time. I think I've seen the second one, but it's not a franchise I'm absolutely head over heels about or anything. So in terms of new films that aren't sequels, there was one announced, which was Pixar's Hoppers, which has got John Hamm and Bobby Moynihan in it. It's about a human and a beaver who exchange brains. 2026, spring 2026, that is apparently landing, but that's called Hoppers. So, yes, there was, I think, showed some little clips of that, which was basically beavers and hopping around, apparently. But so there isn't a huge amount about that other than, it's coming.
As I said before about Pixar, though, at this point, you can make whatever you want and I'll show up.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that to me. In fact, you could just say to me, from a date onwards, there's going to be a Pixar film coming out. You have no idea what it's going to be. I'll still just go and see it anyway.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they've earned brand trust, I think, Pixar. So, yeah, absolutely. In terms of the TV, they were very, very, very heavily leaning into animation outside of the sort of few TV shows that we've already mentioned in terms of the sort of Marvel and Star Wars ones. The sort of announcements of stuff was really all based around the animation things. One new show, again from Pixar, it's called Dream Productions, and it's a spin-off from Inside Out. Sounds like a really fun idea. It's set between Inside Out and Inside Out 2, and it's set in the studio where Riley's dreams are made every night on time and on budget. So that's the idea for that. I mean, in some respects, it sounds a bit like Monsters at Work, set up in that it sort of might not feature necessarily the main characters as much, and it's set in a different area. So it's sort of taking almost that Monsters at Work idea and similar kind of vibe, possibly. But I really like the sound of this. I mean, I love Inside Out. I haven't seen the second one yet because I haven't got to the cinema, but I think this sounds brilliant. I love the idea of this, set in a dream factory, essentially.
Yeah, sounds very, very good. Just these smaller ideas set within the worlds, I think, is fine. Obviously, with Inside Out, you've got all these different departments because of, humans work in very different ways. But the dream thing sounds quite cool, quite fun. And I like the sort of on a budget phrase there. If that's going to cause any sort of chaos or something. So that sounds quite good.
So I like the sound of that. Don't know when that's landing, but that's called Dream Productions. X-Men 97 Season 2. They did reveal some of the villains in Season 2, which is going to be Apocalypse, Lady Deathstrike, Sabretooth are going to show up. They did also mention that they're going to be looking slightly different as they move into the second season. They're going to be new suits inspired by Grant Morrison's X-Men run, drawn by Frank Quitely. Those are the sort of black suits with the big yellow X's on them. So apparently that's going to be the sort of change coming for the next season of X-Men 97. Interesting, kind of they're evolving it in a little bit of a way alongside how the comic books evolved, which I think is intriguing.
Yeah, superheroes change their suits now and again. So yeah, that's fine.
So yeah. That
but the suits aren't going to necessarily make the show worse or better. They'll just look
exactly.
Different.
It's just look different, Yeah. So, yeah, that was great. I mean, first season of that was wonderful. So, all very happy to have that back. They announced some of the people that are going to be in What If Season 3, which is the final season. Ironheart's going to show up. Moon Knight, the Sam Wilson Captain America, Red Guardian, Black Widow are some of the heroes that we're going to see in Season 3. Obviously, different versions of them, but they're in What If Season 3. I'm surprised they decided to bring that one to an end because it's the type of thing that you can kind of keep going forever because it's universe things. But,
while that's true, is it bad to say that I'm glad that this is coming to an end?
Okay.
Apart from the Captain Carter episodes, which no one seemed to like, but I thought were the best episodes. And
I really enjoyed those.
They had a through line as well. Now, while this idea is very good, you've done it for long enough to where you've not made it work. But if you get rid of this or make a final season and just have an animated Captain Carter show, then that's the better idea.
Yeah,
which is weird
maybe.
because, again, with What If, it's like, okay, I didn't like that episode, next one's completely different. But it just never... I don't know. I thought the first season was okay. I just thought the second season was so much worse.
Yeah, I do agree. The second season was nowhere near as good as the first. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Hope we do see a bit more Captain Carter at some point as well. So
yeah. They have announced that the Eyes of Wakanda, which you've been talked about a bit, it's a 4-part animated series, will feature an Iron Fist, but they haven't specified exactly what version of Iron Fist and who's going to be voicing them, how that's going to work. So we don't know if it's going to be Finn Jones or Danny Rand in that, or whether it's going to be Danny Rand but somebody else voicing them, or just don't know at the moment.
I think you should get another chance. I think that if we're going to have this obviously outside of this, but if we're going to have a bit of the revival of the Defenders, I think bring them all back and give it like a proper Marvel Studios attempt.
Yeah. Interestingly, you mentioned the Defenders. There was a little bit that Kirsten Ritter kind of cryptically sort of slightly hinted at on her Instagram that maybe there might be some Jessica Jones stuff at some point, but it was something she posted on Instagram apparently, and it wasn't it was something Jessica Jones related, and maybe she was just posting something Jessica Jones related because, she was Jessica Jones, or whether it's a hint towards something coming back at some point, but certainly there were no announcements through D23 about Jessica Jones. But I mean,
it feels like kind of one at a time they're leaning towards bringing them back, hopefully.
Yeah, it would be great to have all of them back, because she was wonderful. I mean, that was such a great show. So I think she's brilliant. The other animated series is Marvel Zombies, which has been mentioned before. Another 4-part series this is going to be. It's a sort of continuing follow-up to the zombie episodes of What If. It's going to have a mature rating, apparently, as well for that. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's zombies, it makes sense. So that was all the TV announcements. Like I say, heavily leaning towards the animation pretty much for all of that. There were a few things outside of TV and film, one of them being stage things. Apparently, they're adapting The Greatest Showman into a stage musical, which that to me is a complete no-brainer. Why they haven't done that already? Because the entire thing is basically set around a stage. So it makes perfect sense to adapt that into a stage show. That is going to be adapted into a stage musical, which, of course, there you go. So
do you think they can get Hugh Jackman for that?
Entirely possible. I mean, he does do stage work. It may be that they can get him for a limited run to do it, but I suspect they'll probably end up having somebody else long term, but maybe they can get him to do it for a limited run, possibly.
I actually haven't seen that film. I probably should go and do that.
Yeah. In terms of other stage stuff, Hercules the musical, which I think is already out, that's going to be moving to London's West End, so that will be coming if you want to go and catch that. And they've also announced that the Frozen musical, which has been a massive, massive hit, there's a live film on stage version with Samantha Barks playing Elsa. That filmed version is going to be coming to Disney Plus in 2025. So if you haven't managed to get to the theatre to go and see that, there is going to be a filmed version of the stage show to Disney Plus, which, was basically what they did with Hamilton. So, that's all good. The other thing is the theme parks. And they announced a couple of interesting additions there. Shanghai Disneyland is getting a new Spider-Man roller coaster. Hong Kong Disneyland is getting a new Spider-Man attraction, which sounds a lot like the version of the web slinger that's at Disney's California Adventure. Might be something else, but that seems to be something related to that. Disney's California Adventure itself, which is where the Avengers campus is going to be doubling in size, which I'm quite happy about because I've been to that and it is quite small and it's not really as impressive as you want it to be. They've got two big sort of franchise things at Disney, one being the Avengers campus and the other one being the Star Wars area. The Star Wars area has had a lot more effort put into it than the Avengers campus side. I mean, I like the Avengers campus. It's just, I think it needed to be a lot more impressive than it was. But they're doubling it in size. There's going to be two new new rides going in. One is called Avengers Infinity Defense, which follows a story which is technology that allows the Avengers to jump between worlds has gone missing, and King Thanos is using it to wreak havoc everywhere. Recruits will travel to iconic locations like Asgard, Wakanda, and New York City alongside the likes of big and small heroes. They also might just find yourself face to face with King Thanos as well. So that's going to be one ride. The other one is called Stark Flight Labs. It puts you in two-person pods deploying to a test station. Then robot arms grab your pods and start whirling you around in simulated flight. Robert Downey Jr. is reprising his role for that as Tony Stark. So for the ride, he will be doing something as Tony Stark. And he's basically sort of tried to emulate the idea of you flying as a superhero in that. So that's Stark's Flight Lab. The expansions won't begin until next year. So God knows when they'll be finished. It's probably going to be at least another 12, 18 months before they're actually done and open. But they're you know, so don't go rushing to book your tickets to California just yet if you want to go and catch those rides. But they are doing a big expansion to the Avengers campus over there as well. So it's fun. Don't get me wrong. There's some great things in the Avengers campus. It's just I kind of wanted a bit more out of it than there was there. So the fact that they're expanding this is great, I think. That's all the news from D23. And that's all the news we've got for this week. Let's move on to some highlights for next week on TV. So, highlights for next week. We have a new show called Bad Monkey, which is coming to Apple TV Plus on the 14th of August. It's based on a best-selling novel, stars Vince Vaughn as a former Miami Police Department member turned health inspector. Andrew Yancey investigates a case involving a human arm. He navigates through eclectic characters and unexpected challenges, all while dealing with his own personal struggles. I mean, this will sort of live or die on whether you like Vince Vaughn or not, I think, to a certain extent, but it does look quite interesting and fun. Apple rarely makes bad TV shows, so I'd probably check this out. It's called Bad Monkey. It starts on the 14th of August on Apple TV Plus. Emily in Paris returns for the first part of its fourth season. That's on the 15th of August, so that will be back on Netflix. There is a new show called Daddy Issues coming on BBC Three and streaming on iPlayer. That's on the 15th of August. It's a new comedy. It stars Amy Lou Wood and David Morrissey as father and daughter. He's a sort of wayward father. She's the daughter who has got herself pregnant and they end up moving in together. That's basically the setup for that. Looks like it could be quite funny. There is a trailer floating around for that if you want to go check it out, but it's called Daddy Issues, BBC Three and iPlayer. That's on the 15th of August. That lands. And the genealogy show, Who Do You Think You Are, returns for its 21st season. That's on the 15th of August as well. That's on BBC One at 9 p.m. So that will be back. I'm not sure who is involved this year, but it's always quite fascinating, that show, so worth checking out. Again, you can tell we're in the middle of August. There's not a huge amount landing, but, 4 interesting shows to look at. Certainly, I will take a look at Bad Monkey. Who Do You Think You Are? I definitely watch. Might look at Daddy Issues. We'll see. Anything for you there?
No, I've still got, like I said, I've got lots of those short shows to catch up with. So
yes,
I'll be doing that.
Yes, I've still got quite a lot of other things. And there are other things coming up as well. I've still got like Walking Dead and things to get through, the Daryl Dixon show and stuff. So if people want to find you in the meantime, where can they find more about you?
They can head over to entertainmenttalk.org or podcast platforms, the same name, TV, games, films, Man United podcasts, Man United are back, so probably kicking off the Premier League next week. It's a preview podcast, review for the Community Shield final, all those kinds of things. A bunch of film reviews recently, got Abigail, The Fall Guy, Deadpool, Wolverine, Challenges, and there's probably one I'm forgetting or something. I did like a whole bunch of catch up with that recently. We've got House of Dragon podcast, if you want our thoughts on the finale, if you want to rewind a little bit and catch up with my thoughts on The Boys end of season, got that out as well. Gaming Talk, we're still doing that, and yeah, there's other stuff to do. Obviously got the Walking Dead stuff coming up as well. Got that's going to be kind of our focus a little bit going forward, so you can check those out. A bunch of other podcasts have done or whatever, so check those out. Again, social media, well, most of them, you only really need one of them, but we're on most of them, either eTalk UK or Entertainment Talk. Give us a follow or say hi. So that's me at the moment.
Excellent. So go go and check Matt out over there on entertainmenttalk.org. For Daryl, you can find him over at hollywoodnorthnews.net for all those TV series you love which are shot in Canada. For us, you can visit the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see all the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website page. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, and YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, on Blue Sky at Geektown, on Instagram at Geektown UK, TikTok at Geektown UK, and Threads at Geektown UK. That is everything. We shall be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.